live now.
Okay.
And I'm going to start recording. And I'm going to start recording.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Council meeting via Zoom on Wednesday, July 8th, 7 p.m. Town Council is meeting via telecommunications pursuant to the Rhode Island Governor's allowance under the COVID-19 situation. We have a warden's report on the agenda, but we just had a meeting the other night. I don't have much more to report. Andre, do you have anything?
Nothing tonight, Ken. Thank you for asking.
Next item is public input. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up at this point? If not, we'll move along. First item on the agenda is actually to discuss and act on the time of the July 27th, 2020 financial town meeting. Molly, do you have input on this? Molly Fitzpatrick?
I have a little bit of input. The canvassers have been hearing from people in the community that they'd like the meeting to begin earlier.
Earlier than what?
Earlier than the 7 o'clock that we traditionally hold the meeting. So in the 5:30 range.
Okay.
It's one of the decisions for you. I'd also, there's another question about the warrant that will make me request that you hold final approval of the warrant over till the 15th. And that question is the location. There's a meeting team that's going to get together Friday morning, and we're going to explore a couple of other location options. Once the warrant is adopted, we can't change the time or the location. So I know this meeting, you have a lot of things to discuss with Amy about the warrant. And I'm not asking for you to not have that discussion, but I'd like you to hold the warrant open until the 15th when we can finalize the location. And I'd like to know your thoughts about the time.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. Council, does anyone have any questions or concerns along those lines?
Early's good with me. Sven.
Okay, Sven, thank you.
Yeah,
I have not,
Martha, go ahead.
we always have these at 7. Why is, when I hear members of the community, I like to have some idea of who this really is
Sure.
and why.
I got a call from one of the seniors saying that she was in touch with many other seniors who wanted to have the meeting a little bit early because the agenda looks so long and complicated. The meeting may move a little bit slowly too because of issues around social distancing. For instance, when people get up to make a comment, it may take a little bit longer for them to, walk the distance to the microphone. It may take, there are just a couple of logistical issues that we haven't worked out yet. But mostly it was for convenience. Mostly it was looking at a couple of long discussions and asking if they could made a little bit earlier.
Martha, do you have a follow-up question on that?
My only follow-up comment on this is I just feel like we build in, we'll end up getting out later. And I don't understand why we have to have the location. We've moved to financial town meeting, I think the day of in the past.
I checked with the attorney on that issue, and she said it would be much better to have the correct location in the warrant. She's
Does
on,
Amy Land have any comment on this?
Amy?
Sure. I'm going to speak to the location first, which I think does need to be set in advance because the logistics of this meeting are so complex in terms of the need for social distancing, the need for sanitizing and spacing, and making sure that we have sufficient audio to cover multiple rooms if necessary. That the location is very important to set. And one of the reasons we're asking you to hold off on that is to make sure that we've identified the most successful location that we can. As far as time, I don't have a preference. I like sticking with tradition so that everyone knows what to expect. Nobody shows up at 7 realizing they missed a 4 o'clock meeting. But I do understand the extenuating circumstances that may make additional time and earlier time during daylight a good idea in this instance. I can go either way.
Thank you, Amy. Any further comments from the council on this?
I would echo what Amy's saying. I mean, I just you're. Can we hold off on that? I mean, because we don't. What I'm hearing, and I may have been told this earlier. I'm sorry if I forgot. The location was, I remember, discussion at the school, maybe, or is that what we're still working on? Is there a chance we're changing the location, or is that what I was hearing from Amy?
Molly, you have information on that?
the canvassers are looking at an alternate outdoor location.
Okay. So would we want to wait and hear from the canvassers on that topic first, and then just discuss this in one ball of discussion? I mean, the reason I'm asking is that I think if we can facilitate more people attending and more involvement, I wouldn't mind switching the time. Traditionally, I agree with that also. Well, yeah, I'm on Amy's page, Amy Mass page.
Well, I guess I'll chime in and say that I'd sort of like to go with the traditional time only because it gives the opportunity for those who work late to finish their work and get home and maybe have a bite to eat and clean up before they go to the meeting. Historically, the past, I mean, the meetings haven't lasted all that long, and you know, when we're getting home from meetings now and there's still light in the sky at 9:30, so I'm not sure it's a matter of going home in the dark. I think, yeah, I think the people are used to having meetings at 7 o'clock. I'd kind of go with the tradition also and try and keep it at 7. That'd be my feeling, but that's just fine. That's just me.
So we have.
Chris, have any input?
I don't see the harm in having it an hour earlier just because of the logistics. I mean, it takes us extra time just to get this meeting up and going, and there's only a handful of us. So we're trying to organize a financial town meeting with a bunch of new requirements or precautions, let's say. So as long as, you know, but to your point, Ken, like the meetings never, I mean, the past 3 meetings have been in record time. So I suspect this is going to be a little different though, because the environment's a little different. We're not funding a lot of things. So
There is one broadband topic. But
So, I mean, 6 is fine with me, but if we go to 7, I'm okay with that. I just, I think the canvassers needs have to be met. And location doesn't need to be, I think the location should be in the warrant personally. So that means waiting to the 15th. I'm fine with that.
Okay, Amy, did you want to have the discussions on the warrant itself, or hold off on that until the 15th also?
Ken, could I just say something
Sure, go ahead, Martha.
about, yeah, I'm sorry, but the idea of having it outside, isn't that kind of a crapshoot?
In terms of the weather?
Yeah. I mean, there has to be an alternative if you're going to have, I know it's July, but, nothing certain with weather. And if you're only going to have a provision for having it outside, that seems extraordinarily short-sighted. How many people did we have for the power company? Does anybody remember?
350.
350?
Yep.
Oh man, we have space, don't we?
So I think, if I may.
Go ahead, Amy.
Sure. I think that's why we're asking for a little more time to make sure we've evaluated all the alternatives and bring the council the best recommendation.
Okay, Amy, if you're on board, I'm fine. I think 6. Having it at 8:30 is just a recipe for disaster. If we're going to move it from 7, I wouldn't want to move it to anything earlier than 6.
Okay, thank you,
And
Martha.
we've got to keep on an even hour.
Thank you, Martha. I think Amy was referring to putting off both decisions on number 1 and 2 until.
Right.
No? Go ahead.
I would like a chance to talk about some of the content of the warrant with the council. Again, just in case there are things you want to revisit, let's put them out on the table so that there's time to come back to them before that.
All right, then we'll just.
That's okay.
Yes, so I'll make a motion to continue the item on the actual time of the financial town meeting, time and location of the financial town meeting until Wednesday, the 15th.
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We'll have it on the agenda for Wednesday. Okay, next item is to receive an act on the warrant for July 27th. As we said, we're going to hold off on a location for it, so we won't be making a final decision. But Amy, this is an opportunity for you if you want to bring something up. Go ahead, Amy Lan.
Sure. What you have in the version that you received today is a draft of the broadband question, which is ultimately pretty straightforward, but I wanted to hear any feedback that the council might have so that we can either answer questions or reconsider if we need to, if you want to frame that in a different way. For anyone listening, I'll just read the short paragraph. It's to authorize the town treasurer pursuant to Chapter 45.12.2 of the Rhode Island General Law to issue and refund from time to time general obligation bonds and notes or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $8.0 million to finance engineering, construction, equipping, deployment, and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. The terms and conditions of such bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness to be set by a resolution of the town council or by the town treasurer and the first warden in the absence of such a resolution.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Any questions or comments or discussions on that from anyone?
So we did touch a little bit when we first talked about it on the fact that phrasing it this way is not necessarily a contingent vote. It doesn't rely exclusively on the RDOF or other federal funding, but asked about the project and the question in its entirety. Presumably somebody could make a motion from the floor to make amendments to it or shape it slightly differently. But this is really the most broad version of the question that the town can ask.
So this allows us the most options with one vote.
Mhm.
Okay. And obviously prior to that meeting, the information will be out there from the broadband committee in terms of all the questions and frequently asked questions and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any comments, anyone?
I have none.
Okay. Martha, you have anything?
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay. Andre?
I did also,
I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, sorry. I didn't realize you hadn't polled everyone. I did have one set of corrections on the water numbers. John identified that I had some slightly off figures in there. So those will be corrected in the final draft that you receive. They're not material changes and they're consistent with what the town has identified before as what it wants to put forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Andre, do you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Sven? No? Okay. Anything else, Amy, you want to bring up? We did have some notes. The letter from Jim Jeremia, was that in reference to the warrant or is that for bond authorization?
It is. It's bond authorization that's included in the warrant. It's a $1 million question. It's on page 3 towards the bottom.
Right.
About authorization to borrow up to $1 million to finance repairs, replacements, and improvements to town roads and bridges. This would combine with a $1 million authorization that was secured last year to tackle 3 primary projects: Pilot Hill, Connecticut Ave, and a portion of Old Town Road. Since I wasn't entirely comfortable with my technical ability to describe that, Jim put together a memo for you so that you could read in a little more detail what the plans are for that total $2 million if it were secured.
Okay, obviously we'll want to have as much information as possible available for this one too, Molly. Any questions or comments on that? Sven Riesum?
Amy, and looking at the list of who's attending here, I guess my question would be, based on your experience and Martha and everybody else, is there a balance when you've got something so important as broadband? Is this the right time to be asking for the roads? I understand the timing sequence, but is there a strategy that it's maybe not a great time when suddenly everybody adds up their fingers and they get to 12 million? So do we need to put all these things on the warrant if we're really, well, at least in my heart, I'm very focused on one. I want the others to happen. And I worry that we're loading the decks, and maybe that's good because people can say no to something, but I'd love any experience and perspective. Amy.
Sure. I'm actually going to defer to the council since at the end of the day, that's a policy question for you to decide how much you want to put forward.
Right, and we've
Thank you.
I think these areas that Jim mentioned are areas that have been in need of improvement for a long time. And as mentioned, that we've already $1 million have already been authorized, and we need to take the opportunity, I think, to do this before things get even worse. So I think it's unfortunate that it all seems to come in one meeting. I think it's absolutely necessary, personally. Chris Willie?
It is necessary, and I don't want to, we've kind of collectively made a pledge not to kick things down the road when it comes to particularly maintenance and other things. And I understand that some things have to be unfortunately delayed because of the financial situation with COVID, but I don't think I think we put everything on the warrant. and let the voters decide.
Thank you, Chris. Sven, hold on, Sven. Andre?
So Amy or Jim, could you just briefly run down what the project is, each three? Is there any sidewalks, Connecticut Avenue? Is this the Connecticut Avenue sidewalk project? Or beach at nothing, none of the, there's no sidewalks being installed here?
For my place, I haven't spent a lot of time familiarizing myself with these projects, Andre. I would have to cycle back with Mike or Jim.
No, these aren't sidewalks. These are actually road improvement, road paving, reducing stormwater, rebuilding the structural integrity of the road, and widening of the roadways. These are major road repair.
It is true that they are road projects. I guess I understood Andre's question to be would they include sidewalks, but maybe Ken's right. They are road projects as opposed to sidewalk projects.
Yep, got it. I'm fine with putting it on the warrant and letting the voters decide on this.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Well, I can wait.
Okay, Sven, go ahead.
I guess, Amy, so right now, if I'm reading this correctly, on the FTM, we have 8 plus 1 plus 1.3 plus 0.3. So what's the total, whatever the words are, potential expenditures at that meeting? Aggregate. Amy.
I would caution you not to add them up that way. That's not quite how it works. Because they're funded through different sources. Hold on.
Well, I think the funding sources.
That's the.
So it might help.
Go ahead, Martha.
It might have to explain the water, explain the water payback. And the other question I had, and this is a question for Amy, do we have anything coming offline the next couple of years? Are we finishing payment on anything?
Yes, we have a significant number of maturities that come offline at the end of fiscal year 22. I don't have the number in front of me, but I can get it in just a second. But yeah.
And the first debt on these would not show up in the next year's budget. No, but couldn't. We've already done the budget. The debt wouldn't show up until 22. Is that right?
At the earliest.
No, 23. No, 23. We're doing 22 now. Oh, what the hell year? What the heck? What year are we in? I don't even know.
We are in 21. We are in 21. Most of the debt will either come online in 22 or 23.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to get to. And then back to the water, if you could explain that again, please.
Sure. Just if I can go back to your original question, Martha, in 2022, the total governmental debt, so it's not water and sewer, is $2.2 million in debt service a year. The following year, that drops down to $1.6 million. So we retire about $600,000 in debt service from 2022 to 2023.
Okay, good. That's really important. Thank you.
Sure. So back to the water. The water has two components to it. The first would be the town's contribution to the water main project. We're looking at about $335,750 contribution to that project. The balance of the borrowing, which is $1.343 million, is borne by the ratepayers of the water company. So that is not funded by the taxpayers. The total project is actually $2.4 million, and there's an offsetting USDA grant of just over $1 million. So there are really three funding components to that $2.4 million project: $1 million grant, a 25% contribution by the taxpayers, and a 75% contribution of the loan portion by the water ratepayers.
And the water ratepayers understand this?
We hope so. We hope they'll come.
Okay,
Further questions or comments?
Are you gonna go back to my question, Amy?
Remind me what it was, I'm sorry.
Total ask.
Total ask 10.3, I believe. But again, I would caution you not to add them up that way. The only place where that aggregate number is relevant is when you look at the total debt carrying load of the town, which is usually done relative to its assessed value. There's a state law that caps the total debt load of the town at 3% of the assessed value. We are well below that number, tens of millions of dollars below that number. So it's not a threshold that we've ever been concerned about. We do get concerned about the debt service coverage, particularly of the general fund. It's something we need to watch and manage carefully, and we often explain to the rating agencies and other lenders how our unique circumstances of building one school or one town hall, one broadband network, one of everything means we incur a fair amount of debt pretty quickly to do that one project. It eventually does roll off, and they do tend to understand that those major infrastructure commitments are significant for a community of our size.
Thank you.
And we otherwise operate with a very small budget, which makes that ratio relatively higher.
So it's a matter of perspective. Thank you, Amy, for the explanation. Any further questions or comments? I will make a motion to continue the discussion on the warrant for July 27th to the, July 15th meeting.
Second.
Second.
By Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben? Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Thank you. Voting affirmative also, motion carries 5-0, unanimous. Next item on the agenda will be to discuss and act on refunding of bonds and/or notes of $1.8 million related to the purchase of a majority portion of the outstanding shares of stock of the Block Island Power Company, now Island Light and Power. Amy asked if we could put this on the agenda. The subject, I said what the subject was. Go ahead. Amy, would you like to start the discussion?
Sure. I'm going to start with a little history for those who may not have the memo in front of you. I don't believe it made it up onto ClerkBase, but hopefully it will be there in the morning for anyone who wants to go back to it. So I am going to follow that pretty closely for anyone who might be listening. If everyone remembers, in September 2016, the voters authorized the town to issue a $1.8 million note to acquire 2/3 of the outstanding shares of the Block Island Power Company. We initially issued a $1.8 million interest-only note with a 2-year term. That note was subsequently renewed for a second 2-year term and currently matures in November of this year. As we all know, the assets and the operations of the Block Island Power Company were sold to the Block Island Utility District, and the town continues to retain the 2/3 ownership of the former Block Island Power Company, which is now Island Light and Power. So I'm going to refer to the $1.8 million note as the Island Light and Power note. the town needs to decide how to proceed with that $1.8 million note that's maturing in November. As you've heard me discuss in different forms over the last few weeks, the town is going to market with a general obligation bond right now for other either previously authorized projects or to do refundings. We have a pretty significant issuance when you combine all those things together, which is great. We can't wait to bring those to market any longer. The timing is right. Interest rates are very favorable, and it's important to the management of the town's cash flow in this really unique circumstance. We are ready to bring that total issue to market, and it's most effective to consolidate these types of borrowings into one issuance. It gives you a chance to minimize issuance costs, and the greater the face value of the bond that you're issuing, traditionally, the more favorable terms you're able to secure. So like I said, that note for the Island Light and Power matures in November. At the very latest, the town would have to decide by August 15th how to proceed with that. I would urge you to make that decision now as to how to move forward. In the difference between now and August 15th, obviously, is not a very long time, and we'll save about $20,000 in issuance costs and likely receive a lower rate by consolidating all of these into one issue if we're able to do it now. But all of this hinges on the question of if the town is going to continue to hold this note for any length of time. If that's the case, this is the opportunity to consolidate in order to minimize those additional expenses. The issuance that we're bringing to market currently contemplates a 10-year term. We're looking at an interest rate below 2.0%, right now about in the 1.6% range. Under those terms, this is at 2%, the annual debt service for the Island Light and Power note would be just under $200,000. That does become a significant impact when we talk about that maturity schedule. It's coming on and taking up some of that capacity. But we would also be asking when we set that term sheet for lenders to provide a redemption feature, which would enable the town to pay off that portion prior to maturity, anticipating that that litigation would likely resolve itself before the 10-year note matures. I know that's a lot to digest all at once, but what I'm actually looking for today would be authorization for the town to proceed with that refunding of the $1.8 million Island Light and Power note as I've described it here. I'll stop for questions.
Amy, just to put it in
Okay.
perspective, Amy, if you could, just to put it in perspective, what is the significance? I mean, it's obvious in terms of the numbers, but just to stress, there's a significant savings in terms of the refunding these, or at this time, you said it's below 2% now. And there's been times when it's been as high as what, close to 3.5 or 4%?
Sure. We used to, in traditional terms, use 4% as our standard interest rate number when we're modeling.
Yeah.
The actual outstanding 2-year note that we would be replacing carries a 3.9% rate. Again, short-term, long-term, all of those things make a difference. But in terms of interest rates, now is a good time to be in the market.
I see. Thank you. And as you mentioned, are the only other projects the CAI network and the Thomas property, or are there others?
Those two for new issuances, and then the refunding of the 2010 bond.
Okay. All right. Jim Kern?
I was going to make this was the comment I was going to make during the last discussion, a good one about whether aggregating borrowing in 1 year. I think there are a number of good points made, including not deferring things. The other thing to consider is that you can't use this argument all the time, but even given the last 10 years have been historically low interest rates and very good times to borrow money, and for a good amount of that, good times to do building construction and public works construction. When you get the last number of major borrowings that I've been involved in, in this same region in a AAA rated community, we were still, they range the bonds when the issuance actually goes out, but high twos into low threes. When you get into below 2.0, for a community to be able to manage its money that way for a 10-year bond at that, to pay that little for money is the kind of thing that really makes a difference in over a period of time. So for both of these items, something to consider, that when money is inexpensive, it's a good time to borrow. Obviously, you have to balance everything else.
Thank you, Jim. Sven, did you hear?
Yeah, Amy, a couple things. One, I totally support the bundling and I totally support the request. But Ken, maybe you can help me. I know many months ago, we had a meeting scheduled with whatever, Light and Power. And we were gonna meet with Amy in that meeting, and I think it seemed to have gotten disrupted because of COVID. I guess my one question is, when was the last time Light and Power met, and or Block Island Power? And then secondly, when can we schedule that meeting to get everybody together to truly understand where our finances are? So there are two sort of separate things. One, I support what Amy's asking, but two, I think we need to get the backbone to some of the numbers.
Sure, we can certainly schedule that. Amy's going to be getting some information from Light and Power tomorrow, follow-up information, and then we can schedule a meeting.
Can we schedule that? I mean, we had the same discussion back in February or yeah, whatever. And I know that meeting was being scheduled, and so I just want to, to Chris's comment earlier, let's not kick this can down the road, and I'd like to see if we can meet soon.
Other comments?
I believe that meeting was scheduled for March 16th or somewhere in there. So
So
that happened to be the day before, or the day that meeting was supposed to be the day after we decided to shut everything down. So
I just don't want to lose that meeting since we've lost it for months.
I agree.
I think we're about to agree to, do something, which is great, but we had questions then, and I think those questions have only gotten more interesting.
okay. Andre, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Ken.
Martha?
I've asked the questions I have, thanks.
Okay. Bill McComb?
Yeah, Ken, as a board member on that, I think we should have a meeting. We haven't met since October, and I think we just need to get updated, whether that's, I think we should set a meeting as soon as possible. I'm still looking for the information. Amy is also.
Right. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the finance director to refund bonds or notes of well, Amy, did you want a resolution just relative to that note, or all three in the general obligation bond?
No, it's unique to the Island Light and Power discussion.
Okay. All right. A second. I'll make a motion to authorize the finance director to pursue the refunding of bonds and notes of 1.8 million related to the purchase of majority portion of the outstanding shares of stock of Block Island Power Company, now Island Light and Power.
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Discussion. All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Amy, for your assistance.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be to receive and act on agreement of grant easement with Deepwater Wind Block Island LLC, and also receive an act on agreement for grant of easement Narragansett Electric Company Incorporated. Jim, do you recommend this item go into closed session?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42461A5 for discussions or considerations related to the acquisition or lease of property for public purposes, or the disposition of public held property where in advance public information will be detrimental to the interest of the public. We will be going into closed session, and I'll let everybody know when we come out of closed session. We will make any announcements whether or not we will make any announcements whether or not a vote was taken. If a vote will be taken, no, it'll probably be an open session. Any questions or comments before we go into? No. I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Second by Andre. All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris? Sven?
I,
Chris, did you say aye? I'm
I
sorry.
did, thank you.
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
No, I was muted.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote the affirmative. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And for those leaving us, good evening. And we'll now go into closed session. Everyone has to sign off and enter the thing.
unmute myself.
You gotta paint that old icebox, Andre.
What's that?
You gotta paint the icebox.
That's a Hoosier cabinet, actually, and
Oh,
I'm told never to touch it.
I wouldn't. If Lisa told you that, you know better.
No, yeah. That thing came from a barn in Lisa's uncle's house in upstate New York, on the top of a 1978 Chevy, which will tell you how old it is. In the pouring rain, I was like, maybe the thing will just fall apart on the way home, and it didn't. Apparently, it didn't. It was covered in bat shit. It got a good washing.
You're recording at the moment. The upper corner there.
You should just read. Let's read the bulletin board while waiting. Let's read stories from the bulletin board.
Just waiting for Martha.
She says she can't get in, wants to go on without her. I can't get in, go on without me.
Okay, Amy, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. We're back in open session, council, and I'll make an announcement that no motions were made in closed session. No votes were taken. And after saying that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second by Andre. All those in favor, Andre?
aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
I
vote in the affirmative. Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us. Have a
Thanks,
good
Amy.
night.
good night.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.